Hi, lovely people. How are you? All right, this video is going to be pretty quick. I'm Jessica. I'm going to be talking about today a couple of different careers or jobs that you may not have heard of before that are in the human resources space. As you all probably already know, I'm a corporate recruiter, so that is one job that I will briefly highlight. Now, I'm just going to be highlighting each of these jobs and giving a brief description of what you will do. This All of the jobs are not going to be highlighted today. I'll probably save that for another video. However, I had the question from a live chat I did a little while ago, maybe a few days ago, sometime last week, and someone was asking about some different professions in HR. And so I found myself sharing more, and so I thought, why not just make a video about it? So we can do a slightly deeper dive, and then I'll do a follow up afterwards to give more highlights into that. Hello, Laura, welcome. And if you do have any questions for me, I'll probably stay on here for about 15 to 30 minutes. So definitely throw any questions into the chat. Nice to see you, Laura. I'm going to put that into the comments as well. Just say, feel free to ask questions. Okay, so let's get into the first one, which I feel like the first couple are going to be the easiest jobs to get into HR, the HR field. The first one is going to be a recruiter. Now, very briefly, what a recruiter will do for a company or a staffing firm, because there's two different types of recruiters, is for a company, they will essentially manage their requisitions, which are what we call job openings. So let's say you're working at a company like, I'll just say Nike. So you work at Nike, and Nike has about, I'm just going to guess, 1,000 job openings, right? Well, they're going to have a team of recruiters on their staff that are going to manage those folks that are applying to their jobs, and they're going to manage those candidate relationships, whether that's through proactively talking to the folks that they like on paper on their resume and application, or using the system or applicant tracking system. They're also going to manage communications with hiring teams that are needing these folks of all the job openings that you see online. They are going to be managing that whole scenario. Okay. Well, that's in a really blanketed statement what a recruiter does. The reason I started with a recruiter is because a lot of folks that find themselves maybe out of college and they're trying to figure out, okay, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to do? And hello, Kia Kill. And they're thinking about HR, but they did not study human resources or psychology or organizational development or some of these different educational fields that may lead you to human resources. They may go to recruiter route because it gives you some of the understanding of how an HR department runs. And guys in the chat, let me know if you can hear me okay, because I am using my AirPods, which we tested out last week. But that is essentially an easy way to get into the HR field. So that's recruiter. The next one I want to talk about is the HR assistant, or you may also see a very similar job title of HR coordinator. This is also a position that you may be able to more easily get a job in. A lot of first graduates getting either out of a bachelor's degree program or graduate degree program may find themselves applying to these jobs. And sometimes these jobs don't even need or require a degree. So let's get into HR coordinator, HR assistant. Basically, they are going to be providing help to likely an HR generalist or the managers within an HR department. And are going to be helping them with different HR processes, a lot of paperwork type of things, data entry, payroll, oftentimes, making sure people are set up. There's a lot of paperwork, whether it's online or offline in actual paper form, that needs to be done to make sure that people are paid on time, to make sure people are receiving their benefits, to make sure people are actually, if we hire someone at a company, we can have them set up legally. We may need information from people. Once someone is working at a company, we want to track their progress, make sure they're doing work accordingly, make sure that we're providing or having managers provide feedback, that sort of thing. So, this person may do a lot of hands on reporting or helping to make reports look a certain way, making sure information is submitted, making sure things are tracked. That's going to be the role oftentimes of an HR coordinator. Now, can it look different at different companies? Yes, and I think it's a good career track as well. It gives you an insight into how things work in the HR field. What are some of the things that an HR department does to make sure that companies are running efficiently? So yeah, it's basically kind of that entry level role. So getting away from the recruiter, the HR assistant, the coordinator, now I'm going to talk about the HR generalist. And thank you, Laura. Thank you, King of Kill, for letting me know my audio was all good. I appreciate that. So, HR generalist, and this is a role that I have had myself. I think it's also a great role for someone that is maybe out of college, you have some HR knowledge. Maybe you've gotten a certification like a SHRM CP, a PHR, a professional in HR, and you have a good baseline knowledge of just processes, business acumen, employee relations, things of that nature that you can bring into a company and kind of hit the ground running with organizational development or setting up HR policies or keeping HR policies up to date, working with employment lawyers as needed to ensure that, uh, offer letters and different policies are in relation to whatever states you're operating in or whatever countries you're operating in, right? Employee communication management as well. Some companies will have an internal communication team. Others may rely more heavily on HR, if it's especially if it's a smaller company, to handle the company to employee communication. So things like if you've seen in news, I think it was better.com, and recently there was another company that had a large number of layoffs. HR will handle that type of communication. A lot of times that may fall on the HR generalist to handle those items, and safety programs, all kind of programs that you may have undergone yourself as you worked at a company. Oftentimes you would have done that through the work of an HR generalist. So that's another title that you may see. And really, when you think of an HR generalist, they should be able to cover a lot of things. So they should be very knowledgeable about a lot of HR practices. And so that's why they're often called an HR generalist. I have also mentioned on this channel an HRBP, and hello, pal pal, welcome. And thank you guys for letting me know my sound was okay. So the the difference between an HR business partner or HRBP is that they're going to have more experience, and a lot of their role is more so in line with managers or the executive suite and making sure that they are managing stakeholders effectively and that they are even getting ahead of business needs and how HR can help with that. So that's kind of the idea behind an HR business partner. It is more tied to the business than, say, an HR generalist, maybe even a recruiter, HR assistant, HR coordinator. That's kind of the goal there. And again, an HR business partner or human resources business partner is going to oftentimes have more experience. That's not a role that you're just going to jump into because you are seen as one of the leaders within an HR department, and you are going to be very much closely tied to the organization and offering a lot of feedback to what leadership should be doing to make sure things like compliance, and then also just from general policy and employee communication standpoint. So there's a lot of things that they will touch, but it's going to be up leveled. Hopefully I'm communicating that accordingly. So the next one I want to talk about is a benefits manager. This is something that I feel like gets overlooked. People don't really think about their benefits until they really need some benefits or they're going on maternity leave or something like that. But there is also the role of a benefits manager. So this is going to be someone that is coordinator benefits, getting the vendors together, communicating certain benefits to employees, and there's a lot of that goes behind the scenes with determining what benefits will be offered to employees, what companies can do, what they can't do. Even when you get down to just medical, dental, those type of benefits, what percentage? Oftentimes, companies are covering a certain percentage of the cost, which the cost for medical is very expensive. If you ever had anything, done medically, you kind of see like, oh, wow, things are really expensive. So these different plans that are organized, you have your benefits managers to thank for that. There are certain companies where the actual organization, they will cover the full cost of certain things, like your um, dental insurance or your vision insurance or even your medical insurance. So they really manage everything that's needed behind the scenes to ensure that employers are getting their benefits and also that they're communicated with accordingly. They have open enrollment happening to make sure things are timely done. As new employees on board, they're making sure that they're set up accordingly. And there's a lot more that goes into that, and there's plenty more benefits that we could run through, but that's overall what they will do. I have Jamie. Hello, Jamie. Jamie is asking, is training development part of HR? Yes. Now, at some companies, things look a little bit differently, right? Some companies will have certain aspects set up or reporting into an HR department, and sometimes not. But oftentimes, training and development is an HR function that is a part of HR. And so the next titles I'm actually going to get into will cover that. So some of the titles that you may see under the training and development, you may also see learning and development, even organizational development under those titles are onboarding specialists. So thinking about once someone is hired into a company, that starts the training and also retention, right? So, an onboarding specialist will often be a part of the training and development team, or they're going to be a part of the recruitment team. Just depends. I've been in that role before. My title was a learning and development partner, and I had some duties of an onboarding specialist, but an onboarding specialist is going to solely manage, and oftentimes this is for companies that have a lot of traction. They're hiring a lot of people, oftentimes, especially for companies that maybe have retail stores and things of that nature. But yeah, they're going to basically make sure that people are set up for their first day. They're going to be welcome. They're going to be trained on everything they need to know from IT to any systems they need to be a part of. If we're on site, what do they need to actually see in an office setting or a retail setting? What do they need to see? And sometimes the trainings have been, in person, but now we've transitioned to a remote work environment, right? So they may also have some hands on setting them up with an online training or e-learning system as well. So they're going to do a lot of that with just making sure they're set up accordingly. The new hires are set up accordingly from a system standpoint or a data entry standpoint, even making sure that they have everything they need day one. They may even be the person that is making sure that they have all the paperwork that's needed, right? If you've heard of the I-9 form and the documentation that we need to make sure that you are eligible to work, right? We are legally hiring someone here in the United States. And then even leading orientation sessions. I've done that myself. And just making sure that employees are feeling welcome from that day one and that they're set up for success. So that's the role of an onboarding specialist, a learning and development specialist or a training and development specialist. And then you can also, with all of these, I'm setting the guidelines to entry level, but obviously there's a management front, right? But they're kind of going beyond that, right? They could also handle some onboarding responsibilities, but oftentimes they are the person that are managing the training sessions that happen with retaining employees and making sure that employees are on this consistent route of learning. So they are facilitating different trainings. It could be more soft skills trainings. It could also be technical trainings. Like I would put technical training as maybe analysis or training on a specific system like ADP or Excel training or access training, things like that. Soft skills trainings I would put as there's new managers. Maybe there's a group of folks and they're going to be transitioned to becoming managers this year. Well, they need to know how to manage people. Oftentimes, you don't just push someone out there and say, "Okay, you're managing 5 people now, or you're managing one person now. We're promoting you," but there's no training involved. So they will handle things like that, communication trainings and such. So that's a great role for someone that likes to get up in front of an audience and talk to people and can relate to people. The other aspect of this job is also creating training. So you can create curriculum. There's also different programs that you'll find as well. So there's setup programs. I've gone through some different facilitations myself with Achieve Forum, for example. So it kind of runs the gamut there, but essentially you are teaching the employees on something, whether it's soft skills or training skills, or you're also setting them up or working with vendors to get the right trainings at that company. Sometimes, even with the training and development or learning and development specialists, they may work closer with the diversity and inclusion team as well to set up certain trainings. So there's a lot of cross functional things that happen within the HR department as well. Great question. I'm glad you asked that, Jamie. Let me know if you have any other questions regarding that. Hello, Pal Pal. Welcome. Nice to see you. Let's see. Always a pleasure. Well, I appreciate that comment, Pal Pal. And we've got about 10 more minutes. So I'm going to try to go through the chat and see if there are any other questions for me. Kia Kill is saying, and then I do have another item I want to talk about. How much education is required to begin this career? Can't tell. That's a great question. It really just depends on what area of HR you would like to move into. It also depends on who you know oftentimes. If you can get a something in the door, if you can get internships or you can get a mentor or a job shadow, that oftentimes will help you because you're at least getting some knowledge of the HR world. Now, I would say the easiest jobs to get immediately without having a lot of experience would be a recruiter, HR assistant, or HR coordinator, because a lot of the skills that you will think about for those jobs will be very transferable. A recruiter, you need to be able to communicate well with people, connect well with people. You need to be able to or have a desire to actually search people online, connect with people online, cold call or cold message folks on different avenues. A lot of times we're using LinkedIn. And so it's a mix of the personality with some soft skills and interests. Because some people are going to say, "No, that sounds like, it sounds terrible. I don't want to reach out to people that I don't know and talk to them." And so it's very scary for them. Other people will go, "Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that." So it depends on where your interests are. The HR assistant, HR coordinator, a lot of that is more administrative. So let's say you worked as an administrative assistant somewhere, or maybe you were doing some administrative work on college, which is actually what I did. I worked in college. I was administrative assistant, part-time, of course, on campus. And so that helped me to gain some just transferable skills with interacting with people, communication, and then also working with systems and learning systems quickly, which HR assistants and coordinators are going to do. You're going to use Excel, you're going to use the full Microsoft suite, but you're also going to need to use different payroll systems, maybe applicant tracking systems at time, depending on what you're doing, performance management systems. Now, luckily, in the world of HR, we're trying to combine systems. Most companies are trying, but at the same time, we normally end up having multiple systems for different things that we need. Hopefully that answers your question. I will say that benefits, HR generalists, HR business partners, you will need specific HR experience of some kind. And oftentimes you can kind of maneuver once you have that experience and baseline. Hello, Victoriously Shay. How are you? Laura says, how do you feel about Amazon's senior HR assistant position? It seems very entry level. I would think a senior HR assistant would be fairly entry level, but hearing the word senior, I would expect them to want at least maybe 1 to 2 years of experience as an HR coordinator or HR assistant, or even some internship experience. You're saying it's in the fulfillment centers and often requires graveyard shifts. Well, that will be a decision you would have to make. I would imagine with Amazon, they probably offer flexible hours. So, if that's something you're interested in, I would ask questions. I wouldn't just say no just based on what you're seeing on the application, or if they're saying certain hours. You can always apply if you're open to certain hours and just ask questions if you get the chance to talk to a recruiter, and just figure out what those exact hours look like, what flexibility they have too. But it could be interesting. But I will tell you, you're going to see that title in a lot of different companies as well, especially large companies. They're going to have multiple HR coordinators and assistants. Erica is saying, I'm interested in learning more about talent management partners and how they work with the HR department. Well, talent managers are very important. And I like this role because it's almost like a tie between recruitment and training and development. Like you're really managing the talent to retain them. So I love that role. I don't know if you're asking a question or if you just want to know more about how they work within the HR department. They're going to be very cross functional. So you're going to find that a talent management partner, and there's probably a similar title to that. In my mind, I'm just thinking about talent managers. Um, they're going to manage that process, really focus on retaining employees. So, what goes into that? Of course, training, making sure we're hiring the right people, because some people don't think about that. It's not always about just training people, but it's also about making sure that we're hiring people into the right jobs. And if we do have people hired and they're not in the right jobs, how can we get them into the right jobs if they're the right fit for us and they like working here? Well, how do we get them in the right spot? So a lot of that retention, and then also working with other team members. They may work with the D&I team because maybe they're finding in their reports, maybe they put out an employee engagement survey and they're seeing certain feedback, and folks don't feel like it's an inclusive culture. Well, we've got to work with the D&I team to figure something out there. And we got to work with management and leadership to figure out what we can do there. So I could go into more of that, but I'll follow up in another video with that one. I'm getting a little close to time, so we got a few minutes left. So the last one that I did want to offer to you today is actually human resources information systems. Oftentimes, you're going to see this as HRIS. Now, I wanted to bring this one to the forefront because this is a role that I actually didn't really know much about until I was working in the HR field. And I think it will be good for someone that really loves data, loves digging into information systems, likes reporting, likes putting together reports, likes digging in and figuring out what is going on with certain numbers and being able to present that to a manager, to an executive team, maybe to the chief talent officer. And I think that's a good role for someone that says, I like the idea of HR. I would love to help HR people, but I don't really want to talk to people all day like a recruiter would. I don't really want to be an HR generalist where they are responding to employee needs and manager needs. I don't want to be an HR business partner. Well, you may want to consider human resources information systems if you like technology and HR. Another aspect of that may even be working with a technical team, but primarily working for an HR department. So this is someone, for example, that may really understand Workday from a technical standpoint, and they can customize it for the HR team. Well, they may be able to work on a technical team, but work primarily with the HR department because they know these HR systems. So that's another role. There's so many. The takeaway from this video is what I want people to understand is that human resources is not just recruiting. It's not just HR managers. There's a lot of in between. And if you're interested in exploring the world of human resource management, definitely dig in deep, learn more. I know there's some articles online. I don't see them really digging into a lot of the other jobs. Oftentimes it's recruiter, HR assistant, HR manager, and that's about it. But definitely explore more and figure out where your interests are. Just don't think that, oh, I'm not a people person, or oh, I don't know this system, or oh, I don't have that experience. I can't get into HR. You may be able to. And I want to make sure that if you have some of these interests, you can see a spot for yourself. Let me just check out some of the rest of the comments as we got a few minutes left. Oh, thank you. I'm glad it was helpful for you, Jamie. Thanks for the nice comment. JMJ is saying that's awesome. You got started early. Like I did get started pretty early in school. It was a need to. I needed to work, so it gave me the opportunity to work in some different areas and figure out what I like. Erica says this is extremely helpful. I know how this role, and I am transitioning from marketing to HR. So this is completely a new field for you. You know, marketing and HR, I think some things that will come in handy for you is communication, because HR is all about communicating with people. And also, when I think of marketing as well, I'm sure you have this need to work across or cross-functionally with different stakeholders, right? So that's another transferable skill that you can use. And I'm sure there's more that I could think of, but I think that's a nice transition, especially if you were to say, Erica, let's say you used your marketing experience and you wanted to focus on working at marketing firms, but in the HR field, that is very valuable because you understand how the business works. And so that makes you even valuable, more valuable as an HR partner, whichever field you want to go into, or whichever specific niche area you want to start in. So best of luck to you, Erica. I'm so glad that you're making the transition. Welcome to the HR world, and I hope you love it. I'm going to jump off of here. I appreciate your time today. And again, I'm Jessica Higgs. Thank you for checking out the video, and I definitely hope it was helpful. Bye.